Good afternoon, and welcome to Paid Family Medical Leave in Connecticut, Myths versus Facts. My name is Stephen Saloom, and I'm the Director of Advocacy and Capacity Building for Fairfield County's Community Foundation, where our mission is to enable everyone to thrive in Fairfield County together. We're pleased to bring you today's webinar in conjunction with Connecticut's Paid Leave Authority. The Fund for Women and Girls at Fairfield County's Community Foundation has for years supported the establishment of paid family leave. And in 2019, after years of exploration and negotiation, Connecticut passed legislation creating a comprehensive paid family and medical leave insurance program to be administered by the Paid Leave Authority it also created. When this program was established, Connecticut's Women's Education and Legal Education Fund declared it a critical step forward for women's economic security, especially for low-wage workers and women of color who are an increasing number of primary breadwinners for their families in Connecticut. This insurance program is funded by employees and voluntary self-enrolled participants. It provides workers with access to paid leave when needed for life events that require them to address the worker's own serious health concern, care for a child after birth, adoption, or foster placement, provide care to a seriously ill or injured family member, address qualifying needs arising from the foreign deployment of a related service member, serve as an organ or bone marrow donor, or address certain matters relating to family violence. The Paid Leave Authority administers this leave program and its rules. The authority also offers employers, administrators, and healthcare providers helpful tools for understanding and effectively navigating their roles in the program. The authority has established the paid leave program for Connecticut during the pandemic to be ready for full rollout in 2022. We're pleased to share with you the details of this important support for Connecticut's economy today during this webinar. And we're pleased to have Andrea Barton Reeves, the CEO of Connecticut's Paid Leave Authority, help educate us all about the myths and facts of this valuable new program. Ms. Barton Reeves has a distinguished bio and history in healthcare management. And I will turn it over to you. Oh,
there you go.
And I will turn it over to you, Andrea.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Let me just do a few technical things before we start, because I like to stop my video so I'm not a distraction. It's just a floating talking head. So let me do that, and we will start from the beginning. All right. Amber, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
All right, let me do that. Okay. I'm cooperating here today. Okay. So thank you for that very kind invitation to have us join you today. My name is Andrea Barton Reeves, and I am the CEO of Connecticut's Paid Leave Authority. Before I joined the Paid Leave Authority, I spent 10 years at HARC, which is an agency in Greater Hartford that supports people with intellectual disabilities and its families. I started there as its Vice President of Administration and In-House Counsel, and led the organization as its CEO for the last 6.5 years before I came to the Paid Leave Authority. I've been really fortunate to have an opportunity to engage in public service through board membership and board leadership. I am originally from New Jersey, but I've lived in Connecticut for the last 25 years. I have an undergraduate degree from Rutgers University, and I have a law degree from New York Law School. Today, we'll talk about the Paid Leave Authority itself. I'll cover some of the key dates and give you just some of the basics about the authority and paid leave itself. Then we will focus on some of the most frequently heard myths that we hear about what paid leave is about, who it will benefit, whether or not a person will ever need a leave, and the impact that it has on businesses. Then we'll have an opportunity to hear from State Representative Josh Elliott, and I'm actually personally really looking forward to that, to hear his perspective on paid leave, and then talk to you a bit about what we do to support businesses in navigating the program, and then have an opportunity for questions and answers. The authority itself, as Stephen had mentioned, was signed into law as part of the Public Act 19-25 by Governor Lamont in 2019. Our purpose really is to support employers in understanding the law and to provide paid leave benefits for employees so that they can take time off of work without having to worry about lost income. We have a threefold mission, and that is to provide pathways to accessible paid family leave benefits, to help employers, administrators, and healthcare providers to do the same by giving them tools so they can understand their roles and to navigate the program. Our responsibilities include outreach and engagement, so you've probably seen us everywhere, and that's on purpose, to develop the policies and procedures that are needed to run the program. We are also responsible for establishing and maintaining the contribution rate and the trust fund itself in receipt of those contributions, which just closed in this last quarter. There are employers that have the option under the statute to provide a private plan, which would be a corollary to the public plan as long as it meets certain statutory criteria, and we're responsible for that as well. And finally, we are responsible for administering the paid leave claim benefits, which will start in 2022. Here are some key dates that you should be aware of. We opened employer registration for the paid leave program last November. Employers should have begun deducting from those wages in January of this year. Employers also had the opportunity to send in their application to indicate their interest in providing a private plan. Quarterly electronic payments are due at the 30-day mark after the end of the quarter. So we offer a 30-day grace period after the end of each quarter. And that first quarter closed on April 30th, which was last Friday. Our goal is that in December of this year, we will be able to have people submit their applications for benefits so that benefits can begin statutorily in January of 2022. So some basic questions about who's covered by the law. Covered employers include all those that have one or more employees working in the state of Connecticut, and that does include nonprofit employers and private sector employers that have a unionized workforce. Sole proprietors and self-employed individuals who choose to participate may do so, but if they choose to opt in, the statute requires that they remain in the program for a minimum of 3 years. Those who are not covered by the program include employees of the federal government and some state of Connecticut employees, except those who are considered covered public employees, and I will explain that in just a moment in the next slide. Municipalities and those that work for local or regional boards of education are also excluded unless they too have covered public employees. Non-public elementary or secondary schools are excluded from family and medical leave and therefore are excluded from paid family and medical leave as well. A covered public employee is defined as a non-unionized employee of the state of Connecticut. Those unionized employees who collectively bargain to be a part of the program may do so at any time. Employees of municipalities or employees of local or regional boards of education may participate in the plan if they too collectively bargain to do so. In both of those circumstances, if the unionized employees of those workplaces collectively bargain to be included, then the entirety of the workforce, whether they are in the union or not, is then included in the paid leave program. There is an expansive definition of municipality, which you can see at the bottom of the slide, that includes the traditional ways that we think about municipalities, towns, cities, and boroughs, but they can also include tourism districts and flood commissions. Let's address what the first myth is that we hear about paid leave, that it's just another tax on Connecticut businesses, and we hear this quite often. The truth of the matter is that paid leave is completely employee funded through the 0.5% of wage withholdings through payroll deductions. The employer's role is to be responsible for withholding that requisite amount and submitting it to the paid leave authority quarterly. Those contributions are post-tax and they are based on the employee's wages as calculated for the purposes of FICA. And there is a cap on those wages, and that is up to $142,800, which is the Social Security contribution limit. And that means that the contribution amount for someone making that amount of money is about $714 a year. When the funds come into the program, The employer, as I mentioned earlier, is responsible for that. The Paid Leave Authority, we receive that data, and what we're doing right now is validating that data against information that we have available to us from the Department of Revenue Services as well as the Department of Labor. Those contributions are deposited directly into the Paid Leave Trust Fund, which is managed by the Office of the Treasurer. We often get the question as to whether or not those funds can be swept into the general fund for the state, and the answer is no. Statutorily, it is not property of the state of Connecticut, and it cannot be swept or used for any reason other than for the administration of paid leave benefits and to pay benefits themselves. So a little bit more here. So businesses only have to pay the contributions themselves if they fail to withhold and remit the 0.5% from their employees' pay. But with that said, the Department of Labor has granted a one-time special catch-up period, which ends at the end of June if you've not started to withhold, which you should have done beginning in January. And in that instance, in using that catch-up period, businesses may deduct an additional 1% on top of the 0.5% for a total of 1.5% through June 30th to make up for any missed deductions. If in fact, withholding that additional 1% on top of the 0.5% does not give enough money to contribute the amount that should have been withheld from January to June, that's a discussion that we can have with you at the Paid Leave Authority to see if you might require an extension so that you can have the full catch-up period, or maybe an extension of the catch-up period to make sure that the deductions are whole. The second myth is that paid leave really only benefits employees who work for larger companies. Reality is that paid leave really does benefit smaller companies, and it's actually applicable to smaller companies as well. For those who have 75 employees or more, you're probably already familiar with the current family and medical leave law in the state of Connecticut. We've actually had family and medical leave for well over 25 years. It was passed into law in the mid 1990s. But if you were a smaller employer below this 75 person threshold, you're probably not familiar with that at all. And in order for an employee to access that benefit, they had to have worked for the employer for at least 12 months and 1,000 hours, immediately preceding the time that they were applying for leave. Once they met those criteria, then they would enjoy job protection, the ability to hold onto their job when they return, or a substantially equivalent job, meaning same hours, same pay, same position, when they returned from their leave. Taking that leave meant that they could get 16 weeks in a 24-month period or 26 weeks for military caregiver leave. But the employer could require the employee to use all of their accrued time off and exhaust all of that in order to cover their time away. When the law changes in 2022, and this is so critical, and so I will emphasize it again, it will apply to all employers with one or more employees. And there will be no hours worked requirement, and job protection, as I just described, it will attach at 3 months rather than 12. The time off to be taken will change from 16 weeks in a 24-month period to 12 weeks in a 12-month period. The additional 26 weeks of leave that's available for military caregivers will still remain available. It's not additional, it's 26 weeks of leave. The additional 2 weeks comes if a person is experiencing incapacitation during pregnancy. And the other major change in the law that you should know about is that employers can still require employees to use their accrued time off, but they must allow that employee now to keep up to 2 weeks of their accrued paid time off in whatever form that comes in. And so exhaustion of leave for purposes of FMLA is no longer permitted when the law changes next year. Because of that threshold of application of the law, moving from 75 to 1, there might be some laws that employers might not be familiar with, but these remain in place even with the changes to the Connecticut law. That would be workers' compensation, the Americans with Disabilities Act that applies to employers of 50 or more employees, the Pregnancy Disability Act, and what's known as CFEPA, which is the Connecticut Fair Employment Practice Act. Those leaves all require that a leave may be used as a reasonable accommodation to help support an employee in their workplace, as long as that person can still perform the basic functions of their job. These laws will not change when the law changes for family and medical leave in 2022. The laws that will provide for income replacement will now include not just workers' compensation alone, but will now include the Connecticut Paid Leave Act. It should be noted, though, that a person that is receiving workers' compensation benefits is ineligible to receive paid leave benefits from the Paid Leave Authority at the same time that they're collecting workers' compensation. Another fact and a point of clarification is that the amount of time or a worker's schedule is not relevant to whether or not they will be able to access job protected leave or paid leave benefits. The law applies to all employees, whether they are per diem, seasonal, part-time, or full-time. And for those that work multiple jobs, they will all benefit from paid leave. This is why it's not a benefit that's specific to those that just work for large employers. And on this chart, you can see what some of the things that I outlined before. If you were a large employer and you had 50 employees or more, you were subject to not only state FMLA, but federal as well. Connecticut Job Protected Leave is also here because that will be a factor to consider starting next year. But to access paid leave benefits from the Paid Leave Authority, a person has to have earned at least $2,325 in the highest earning quarter of the last 4 of the 5 quarters that they're seeking benefits. They also can earn that from more than one employer. And in addition to having a leave reason that's noted in the statute, and thank you, Stephen, for outlining those, that person has to be currently employed or working in the state, or they were employed and working in the 12 weeks immediately prior to the time they apply for leave. A sole proprietor or a self-employed individual who's opted into the program may also do so and access benefits. We often hear this. Another myth is, I'll never have a need for paid leave. And honestly, if you never have it, that's actually a very good thing because we hope that you have a long and happy life. And that is true for those who are around you that you love. But we know the reality is that's probably not going to be the case. So paid leave may be available for very happy reasons, like expanding or creating your family through birth, adoption, or foster care, also known as bonding leave. But you also may have to take leave to care for a family member with a serious health condition or your own serious health condition, which might include being an organ or a bone marrow donor. And pregnancy is considered a serious health condition under state and federal FMLA. There's special leave that might be available to take care of someone who's been injured in active duty in service to our country. There's also qualifying exigency leave if a family member is in fact called to overseas active duty. And of course, we hope that this is never the case for anyone, but a person who is impacted by family violence, also known as domestic violence, can take up to 12 days of paid leave under this law to address concerns and issues that arise out of being a victim of family violence leave. So when we look at the reasons for leave that are here, you can see that there might be in the course of your life, a circumstance under which paid leave might apply to you or someone that you love. Another fact is that it's important to know that there is an expanded definition of family, which means there may be many more people for whom you might be able to take leave besides yourself. Under federal FMLA, and there's a corollary to state law as well, you can only take leave to care right now, if you were to take it today, to care for a parent, a spouse, or a child who's under 18, or if the child is over 18, that child has to have a disability in order for you to qualify to take family and medical leave to care for them. In 2022, there will be an expansive definition of family member that will include a parent, a spouse, a son or a daughter of any age, siblings, grandparents, grandchildren, or individual with whom you have an equivalent relationship that is the same as any of those that are listed in the statute. And that's really known as related by affinity. Specifically, related by affinity means any person with whom the employee has a significant personal bond that's like family, listed in the statute, as I noted earlier, regardless of their biological or legal relationship. Some of the most common circumstances that we know of, and the one that most people can relate to, is an unmarried couple that has resided together and they have been spouses to one another for all practical purposes for many years. So they maintain a familial spouse-like relationship despite the fact that they are not legally married. Under the current law, there would not be an opportunity for a person to take time off to care for the other person they consider to be their spouse. They would have to use their vacation or other pools of time, and there would be no job protection associated with that. When the law changes next year, that will no longer be the case. And there would be time off that could be taken, and that person would have job protection also. What are the lengths of leave? You've heard me mention them tangentially, but directly, the lengths of leave are 12 weeks in a 12-month period, 26 weeks for for a military caregiver, 12 days for family violence, and 2 weeks for an additional amount of leave for incapacity that is due to pregnancy during the pregnancy. And those same amounts of time are available for income replacement through the Paid Leave Authority by receiving paid leave benefits. Another myth we hear quite often is that paid leave will hurt businesses. So we know that paid leave does not hurt businesses. And in fact, there's a brand new study that has been issued by Stanford University that concludes that paid leave does not hurt businesses. That study was conducted by studying businesses in New York State that have 99 or fewer employees, so smaller businesses, so to speak. And they were surveyed 2 years before the passage of paid leave and for 2 years afterward. They used a control group of comparable businesses in Pennsylvania. So there was a significant size study of almost 5,000 businesses. Some of the key findings included that employer perceptions of their work performance did not change perceptibly after the policy took effect. And businesses actually found it easier to manage leave absences of 2 weeks or longer, and that it didn't really have any significant impact on the makeup of the employer's workforce. There wasn't discrimination in hiring practices, such as hiring women who, not hiring women or being less likely to hire women of childbearing age, or the other side of that is not hiring people who are older because they would be caregivers and need to take time off for that purpose. It also concluded that it doesn't hurt businesses because it suggests that it may actually help employers by requiring them to have standardized processes for maintaining longer worker absences. And it's at least suggestive of the idea that having a family leave policy in place reduces the burden on employers, especially when dealing with unprecedented circumstances as we have, like a pandemic. We're happy to send a link to everyone. There will be a copy of this PowerPoint provided, but we will also send a link to that study itself. So, in the opinion of a Fairfield business owner, also known as State Representative Josh Elliott, who's a proponent of paid leave does help small businesses, and he's a supporter of small business. So, Representative, if I might invite you to share a few words about paid leave and your business.
Yeah, you got it. It's my pleasure. So we opened, when I say we, the royal we, my mother opened Time and Season in Hamden in 97, and I actually opened up the Common Bond before I ran for office in 14, and that's located in Fairfield County in Shelton. And we have about 45 to 50 employees at both locations, and over the past couple of decades, we've really only been able to offer paid vacation to a select number of people that have worked at the store, more management level. And it just didn't really work within the metrics of our business. Grocery stores are a historically very low margin business. And so I actually didn't even know about the push for paid family medical leave before I ran for office, but as I was running, I became well acquainted with it and actually ran on the issue, got elected on the issue, and then was able to get this signed into law. And I believe in the program on both the moral and ethical grounds that staff ought to be treated well. But also, I come at it from the perspective of a small business owner that has to compete with large places like Trader Joe's and Whole Foods that are just do a different kind of business, even though they are a very similar kind of business. And they can offer so much more to their employees. I think there's a lot of benefits to being a small business that are more in terms of the soft skills. But I will say that this will allow us better retention. We have very good retention for our management, but it's tough to keep folk who are closer to minimum wage, and that's what I think. To me, this is really geared for is this idea and expectation that people, after they have a kid or there's a tragedy in the family, that you have very little time to take care of yourself. And so, viewed through the purely business lens, this will just allow us to compete better, and to hold on to people longer, which we not only want to do because it makes our lives easier, but it also, I think, is better for the customers, better for the employee, it's better for the business. And I'm really excited for this to come into play, and frustrated that we have to wait a year, but also understand that a program like this takes time, and also needs to be funded and fully funded. And one last bit is that this is purely employee funded. I was of the belief that employers at the very least should chip in, but politically that just wasn't going to be possible. The only way that this bill was ever going to be possible was if it was funded purely by the employee paychecks. So there's no cost to the employer too. It just serves as an insurance policy. And what I always say about government is that government isn't the end all be all. It isn't the solution to all of our problems, but the things that government does particularly well are insurance programs, because it's simply money in, money out, and there's no need for trying to create profit through this. So I have the full expectation that under Andrea, this will be a really well-run program, and I'm looking forward to see the rollout next year.
Thank you very much, Representative Elliott. We appreciate it, and we appreciate your support too. So let me go to the next slide. So businesses, here's another myth that we hear quite often, that they have to navigate the ins and outs of paid leave on their own. And the fact is that is not true. And here's where I will make more of a personal plug. I helped to design the website with my own personal peccadillos in mind, meaning I don't like to go to websites and have to hunt everywhere for what I need. I like things in plain language where I can understand it. And I want to be able to know where I can find information when I need it. So we helped to design the paid leave site with a plethora of resources so that you wouldn't have to navigate this on your own. So if you can see here that we have a number of documents: the employee rights poster, the rack card, and that should say fact, not fat sheet there. So we have these 3 documents, and all of them are different forms of the same information, because what we've learned is that people take in information differently. So you as an employer do not have to create your own information to share with your employees. The only thing you need to do is come directly to the paid leave site, go to the employer section, scroll down, and all of these documents are available for you. So you don't have to have the burden of trying to explain all of that yourself. In addition to that, we put everything you could possibly want to know about paid leave, including how it works, how much people get, what a private plan is, all in this comprehensive employer toolkit, which we think has been downloaded about 20,000 times. So we know people are using it. And that's where, and we'll update it because it's 2021, so we'll be updating that soon. But it still contains a lot of really great information, so you don't have to do any of this heavy lifting on your own. We also have an employee paycheck mailer that notes that starting in the beginning of this year, employees will note a change to their paycheck. So even if you haven't started to withhold the contributions, and I hope that's not true, but if it is, as I said, we have some support for you. You can use this paycheck mailer to give your employees a general sense of what's going on. That QR code that you see on the right side there is actually something that employees can use if they have a phone to be able to go directly to what's known as a contribution calculator. So we even take the burden off of employers to have to tell employees, well, how much exactly is going to be 1/2 of 1% of my paycheck? They can go to the employee section of the website and put in their own numbers and calculate that number for themselves. So for those that have multiple employers or wages that change for any number of reasons, they can have a sense of assurance as to what that deduction will be, and give them a general sense of what it is. And all All of these are downloadable and they're all available at ctpaidleave.org. Not only that, you will find information there. We have videos, and I think we're up to 250 frequently asked questions that are all categorized, and the entire site is available. And all of this is available in English and Spanish with other languages that are coming. We also have our own YouTube channel, and there you can go and you can find the employee's guide, the employer's guide, the frequently asked questions. We did an enormous amount of research with lots of interviews of potential users so that we could really understand how people want to take in information. So you can see all of that that's here. In addition to that, we don't have a call center. And the reason that we don't is because we want to maximize as much money as possible that can be used for benefits, and call centers are extremely expensive. So we understand that's a source of frustration for some people, but I want to be very transparent as to why we made a deliberate decision to not fund a multi-million-dollar call center. Instead, we have customer support, which can be found on our site. And if you do complete this form and select an option to have someone reach you, someone will call you back. We've partnered with United Way, and they in turn are providing a much more cost-effective solution to getting back to people so that we can get them their answers without having a very expensive call center. I want to thank you for the time that you've given me today to talk about paid leave. Please visit our site. We do update it regularly. We also have a calendar on the site where there are other webinars and places where you can view webinars that we've already given on virtually everything there is to know about the paid leave program. And now I will stop sharing my screen and come back on camera. And thank you, Stephen. We really appreciate the opportunity. And thank you, Representative Elliott, for your kind words about the paid leave program. I will say this, we may not get everything right, but I can guarantee you we are doing our best. We are putting our best effort forward. And there are only 13 of us at the site, at the authority
And I
too.
can imagine, and thank you for all you're doing, because this is, I'm simply starting to create an advocacy program at a community foundation. You're trying to create the entire authority for this statewide program that is very involved. And I know that you came on board just before COVID.
I did.
And it's been an intense time in so many ways, but it's also only ratcheted up the need for this. And I just wanted to share my thanks and the foundation's thanks for what you and the team have been doing throughout to help people understand this is coming, how it's evolving, when it will be ready, to become comfortable with the value it's going to provide, and really the assurance it provides for Connecticut's economy going forward, for employees, employers, and everybody. So we deeply appreciate the work that you and your team are doing, and the legislature as well, for stepping out and actually enabling this to happen, finding a way to bring a bunch of disparate perspectives together on this important issue, and join with a number of other states to provide these protections. I think particularly as Connecticut is contemplating its economic future, and the governor and many others, the business community, others are coming together to try to enable us to do that. It's particularly important that we think about how we provide for the workforce that our future employers are going to need in reliable ways, and bring the workers along with all of that. And so it's a testament to really the forward-thinking value that our policymakers and really our administrators are providing for Connecticut as we seek to really build back better, right, in the years ahead. So I thank you all for the work you're doing.
Thank you. So we recognize that it's a different way of thinking about how we operate in the state of Connecticut. And I can tell you, so I'm on also with Andrea Comer, who is our Chief External Relations Officer. We've heard the entire gamut of opinions about the paid leave program. There's no question about that. Everyone has a very distinct perspective on what we're doing, the need for it, the purpose of it, abuse, fraud. We've heard everything. And our perspective at the paid leave program is that we acknowledge those issues and concerns. We never act in a way that we believe is intentionally disrespectful to just say to people, well, you shouldn't be worried about that, or that's not something you should be thinking about. We really just want to focus on the benefit itself. We know that all of those perspectives are ones that people hold, and we're here to serve all of the people of the state of Connecticut. So we listen respectfully, but we also say it's the law of our land. So our responsibility at the Paid Leave Authority is to administer it, and our job is to try to make that as easy as possible for you. So we're open to the criticism. If there's a better way you think that we can do this, we're listening to that. Some of the things we have no control over because they are legislative, but we certainly are collecting those and passing those on to the labor chairs and other legislators so that they can hear what the public is thinking and the concerns that they might have. In the meantime, we're really in a position to provide education and support and to continue to encourage people to do this because it's coming. There are more states that are passing it. We probably talk to a state a week that's interested in also standing up their own paid leave program in whatever shape that might take. And we've already heard President Biden speak of perhaps having a paid leave program at the federal level. So we understand living in the land of steady habits, there might be some resistance in some areas, but we want to let people know that we're here to help. And that's really what we do here at the authority.
Terrific. Well, thank you. And I don't know if there are any other, I see, I didn't know, Andrea, if there's a question or two I see in the,
Sure.
have you gotten those already?
No, we can certainly
Okay.
ask them. So Amber, if you wouldn't mind taking a look at those for me and see if there's anything that we can answer.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So we do have a couple of questions here in the chat, and I just want to remind those that are joining us that we would like to answer your questions. We are here to help. So go ahead and submit your questions using the QA feature at the bottom of your screen. We'd love to get you an answer to that today. So our first question is, hello, can you share when the Connecticut paid family medical leave regulations will be made available to the public?
Okay. Thank you. This is another great question. So now I'm going to go into my legal world. Because we are a quasi-public agency, we don't issue regulations. We issue guidance because we don't have statutory authority to actually issue regulations. That's all that is reserved for, I'll call them fully fledged state agencies like the Department of Labor or Department of Revenue Services. So we don't do that. What we do is we formulate policies around specific issues, and those policies then are approved by our board of directors, and then they become the policy of the agency. If there are specific policies that you have in mind, then I know that we're working on them. They're usually around claims and how that process is going to work. We are in negotiations now with a third-party administrator to help manage the claims process. That is not something that we will be doing internally. And when I am able to, because I have to get permission from the governor to be able to announce that, then I will do that. But we are actively working on issues that I know people have been asking us about in terms of regulations, which are sort of the rolling forward and rolling back periods for counting leave, and how will intermittent leave be handled, what will happen with employees that have multiple employers as examples. So all of those are now being they're being formulated as we speak for they'll be gathered together all as one document to be given to our board for their review and their approval.
Great, thank you so much for that. And the next question is, can you confirm whether the 12 days for leave due to family violence are paid or unpaid under the Connecticut paid family medical leave?
They are paid. So we know there's already an existing family violence law for the state of Connecticut that's been, I'm going to say it's probably more than 7 years that law has been in place. Which allowed a person to take time off of work to attend to issues that were related to family violence, whether that was court or relocation or seeking therapy and support. You could take that time, but it was unpaid. The family and medical leave law now allows you to take that time and to seek wage replacement for those 12 days. So it is paid.
Great. Thank you so much, Andrea. That seems to conclude our questions for the moment. So again, I just like to give everybody the opportunity to submit their questions using the QA feature at the bottom of your screen. If it's easier for you to find the chat, you can drop them in the chat and I will look for them there as well. In the meantime, I'm going to hand this over to you, Steve. Thank you so much.
And okay, thank you so much, Amber. I guess I'll just ask one quick question to see if anybody else has any they'd like to add. Were there other states that were particularly helpful to look to figure out what we wanted to do with our program or what we wanted to avoid with our program? Or is Connecticut at this point really kind of a leader, a bit of a trailblazer with this program? And where do you see the trends heading for the rest of the country? I know you noted that other states are inquiring.
They are,
Any thoughts about that?
certainly. So that's a great question, and thank you for that. We've relied very heavily on Washington State and Massachusetts as really strong partners in helping to inform us about what they believe they've done well and things that we should absolutely avoid. And so I think many of the things that we've done that we think have worked well have really been because of the very generous amounts of time that both of those state agencies have lent to us in teaching us what to do and what not to do. And I would say that Connecticut is in the forefront of what we're doing because of the expansiveness of our program, the expansive definition of family, and the amount of benefit that we pay. Because if you make at or below minimum wage, then the statute says that you can receive up to 95% of your weekly wage. And most states are really at a between 50 and 75%. So it's a very generous benefit as compared to other states. We were the 8th state to pass paid family and medical leave in the country. So certainly we're still in the vanguard and the forefront of that. And there are other states that are rapidly coming on board. They would include Virginia, California, Oklahoma, Illinois. I mean, these are states that have reached out to us and said, we're thinking about doing something very similar to this. Can you tell us what works and what doesn't? And we certainly, having stood up an agency in a pandemic, have some learnings that we can share. And one of them is
Yes.
don't stand it up in a pandemic. That's one of the things we would tell you to. If you
Rule
can
number
wait, number one, choose more ideal circumstances. But if you have to, the thing to do is to be very single-minded and very focused on the work that needs to get done, and do not be distracted by other factors, because the thing we take very seriously at the Paid Leave Authority is that we know that there are literally thousands and thousands of people who are counting on us to get this right. And that's what we focus on every day.
Excellent. Thank you. We appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I'm seeing no other questions. I want to thank you all for participating today. Again, Andrea, Josh, the team at the Authority for bringing this together, and to the audience for listening in. This is an exciting program. It's a great step forward for Connecticut's economy and for Connecticut's workers. And we look forward to you helping us as we head into implementation in 2022. Thanks again, everybody.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you. Thank you, Representative, for being here and your support. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye.